Welcome. This is the March 11th Jail and Zones production user call. We have Richard, DCH, Dan, Jan, Lasse, and myself, Michael, so far. And Dave, tell us more about OCI Runtime Help.
So basically, I have been very busy and not done enough on the OCI runtime stuff that I would like. So I'm really keen for anyone who has a little bit of time to try it out and give me some feedback on what sort of documentation we need, and hopefully that will also encourage me to write some more of it.
You had been maintaining some napkin notes, etc. Are those in a semi-presentable state? And can you give us a link?
I
And
can
you've
do
got
that,
lots of
not now, but
background
I can do
noise.
it later
Okay,
when I'm
cool.
back at my desk. Yep, I will put the link in and go for it.
Okay, so by help, it is literally a cry for help. I totally get it. Let's help out Dave. That's like a lot of effort's gone into that. It is really close. Many are excited. So I wanted to point out that we are a month or so away from FreeBSD 14.3 code slush, meaning, hey, your features and MFCs and all those goodies really should get in there. And Dave, you could probably give a better description of what that means to people like users who are tracking, be it features and bugs and reviews and goodies. Actually, Dave, as a core team member, could you just give us a crash course on what that means ever so briefly?
On the slush, I don't know if I'm the best person, but the idea is that as we get closer and closer to a release, people should spend more time on fixing the egregious bugs that they know about rather than throwing more bugs into the system. Um, it's less important for like a 14.3 for like the late point releases. It's much more significant for like a 15 where there's a lot more changes going in. Yeah, so that's basically the thing. We're coming close to the point where the 14 stable branch gets forked off and will be passed over to the release engineering team to be turned into 14.3. And there's no doubt bugs, issues, and so forth that need to be addressed. So it's a reminder to developers, please stop breaking things, please start fixing things.
Isn't it obvious the day before the code slush goes into effect, you update all the drivers to add support for
Don't give
the
away our
latest
evil
chips?
plan. Don't give away our evil plan. What?
I mean, how often has Intel dumped a bunch of new chipset and Ethernet card drivers like 2 or 3 days before a code slush to add support for the latest and greatest chips?
Or we merge
without
OpenZFS
regression testing
1.2.3.
them on
Yeah.
chips more than 2 years old.
Otherwise, you can just do
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or
Of
someone
course,
merges OpenZFS. Anyway, that's the freeze. That's the slush. First the slush, then the freeze, then the release. Sorry, then the release candidates, and then the release.
If I miss, I know then you get into it.
Cool.
It's a semi-official meta issue in the Bugzilla to track known blockers, like there often have been.
Not yet. We do that with the release. When I say we, I mean the royal we, as in Colin does that. We'll have like a 14.3 issues, and as we go first the alpha beta cycle and finally down to the release candidates, the level of broken to get fixed in that release goes up. But the later like 14, like 13.3, 4, and 5 and the same for 14 tend to be pretty quiet releases.
Got it. Okay, that said, there is a notion floating around of jails 2.0, and I think implicitly that means things like descriptors, which perhaps also, Dave, you've got an update on that, and naturally any and all outstanding security fixes. And what else would people like to see? I did just bump into a tab of Bjorn Zeeb's jail process, I believe, virtualization, for lack of a better term, where you could have like process 0 to make Docker happy and other things.
Ah, neat.
So discuss.
So a while back, that being like a couple of years ago, I collected up a bunch of documents of things that could be improved or added to jails to get some community input on. And Lasse, I will dig this list up and add it to the notes here so you can find it again.
Please
So taking a big step back, the way work is funded in FreeBSD is there are only two groups of people who do it. Committers, customers, people who are paying for their own time, or work funded by the foundation to do it. And that's it. So the goal here is looking ahead, not for 2025, because the budget for the foundation is already set for this year, but looking ahead to 2026 and saying, okay, are there things in here that we would like the foundation to fund, or that we would like to make it a proposal that they fund someone to do it? So the foundation has some engineering staff of their own and some contractors that are people that you would know of, like Mark Johnson, for example, who's done a lot of work on FreeBSD. And they also entertain proposals from the community where someone else says, I would do this work if you pay me, half a year or 3 months, whatever, to do it. So we would look through our Jails 2.0 list, reflect on the last sort of year or two of living with Jails and think, okay, what are the things we would need to make this better or different? What are the projects that we talked about but never quite got off the ground because what they really require is 3 months of concerted effort, and put them into some sort of proposal form for the foundation to ponder. So the request here is to ask for the group is, I will dig out the list, go back and have a look. It's a spreadsheet, so add anything else if you want to add it. And then we should, in a week, not in a week or two, in a couple of weeks, discuss which ones of these we have both support for and someone to do the work. And then we would turn those into proposals for funding. Any questions? But that's it in a nutshell.
You mentioned the
Review the
spreadsheet.
list,
Is that
add to it.
the Enterprise Working Group spreadsheet?
No, it's the original Jails one that I did.
Ooh, please share. Rule number 1, have your links handy, even if they're familiar.
So Dave, is that mostly concerning, features within FreeBSD?
It could be anything. So I don't have off the top of my head what the foundation has, but their scope is pretty broad. If it's part of FreeBSD, then the wider FreeBSD, then they're open to doing it. Obviously, the closer it is to something that benefits everybody, the better. But there's been all sorts of stuff over the years. Hypervisor work, for example, work on the package tool, I think, as well at some point. All of this sort of stuff has gone in there. So anything.
Okay.
And I'm doing a quick look at the incubation document I mentioned last week and the week before, and of the technologies, Jail was the least represented. I'll drop it in the chat, and let me see if there's anything in Jail on there. No, it was mostly Beehive and OpenZFS. So that said, and could we, Dave, perhaps go with Jails 2.0 or FreeBSD 15? And I'm not wanting to leave out Illumos zones, but I don't know what their development status looks like right now. Other lists, I will work on that. That said, did we hear on jail descriptors? How's that review doing? And Jan, your executable jail configuration conf file.
Oh, that patch is basically usable, but the problem is getting everyone to just agree to that this is a good idea. Then I can polish it off. But if there's no agreement that this is a feature which is acceptable, then there's not much use maintaining a patch that's never going to be committed. So yeah. The work itself is done. All what's missing is documentation.
On your part, if so, I know Jamie needed some convincing of the idea. He's not against it. He just didn't have a
Yeah.
personal use case.
So I have a small set of improvements I've applied as in my own internal Git repository, which makes it a bit easier to write this kind of commands because I'm exporting a few environment variables to them. But yeah, I should just update the review and see where it goes. But
Keep it alive, else it will become one of many underloved reviews in reviews.freebsd.org. Composable jails, Jan, what does that mean when you last said it? I don't have a date stamp for when you said that.
this was, I think, about why I wanted this executable jail.conf so that you have different composable helper commands, which all configure one aspect of the jail without you losing the ability to just run jail-c, jail-r to create and remove jails so that you don't have to go through some external wrapper and that you do the dependency injection into the jail.conf.
And Dave and Dion and others, does OCI in any way implicitly give us a nifty jail app store? Does that remain as an open question to handle that? Or Lasse, do you have the answer?
It's generally an open question. From the OCI point of view, there's no magical app store.
Okay.
Well, the moment you have the OCI image format supported in your container runtime using jails as a virtualization technology, then yes, you can use any OCI repository. But that does not give you
the discoverability. No.
No discoverability. It's just what you need is an active community to populate that repository. Otherwise, it's just an empty database.
Yeah. And the problem with FreeBSD is we already have the ports tree, so it's not like a lot of the software is difficult to find.
And
Meta packages might be an answer there, just from the hip.
What, sorry, Michael?
Meta packages can be your friend. I mean,
Yeah,
I
maybe.
don't know if,
But
are there
to get
any-
rid of those, I forget what the technical argument was, but he basically said that was a bad idea and we should never have done it.
Oh, really?
I don't know why. Yeah. That was my response. Oh, I quite like them. But
Yeah.
there's some reason why they're bad.
Are there any exemplary meta packages where, wow, let's follow that example for other components? Because often, a mail server is not just, postfix. It's a lot of components. It's
a meta package is just a package with only dependencies.
nothing
and
more.
Maybe a little license file or whatever. It's just a single package which pulls in other packages.
X11, Xorg minimal is the classic example for me.
Xorg server.
Xorg minimal. It contains
right.
just enough to run Xorg server, and a bunch of other things. Yeah.
But of course, you could have your own bunch of ports tree, add a new category to the ports tree, and then put it there or whatever, and have it install somewhere.
Would there be any useful notion of configuration packages where let's just say green mail server is all the stuff that pulls in, obviously the software dependencies, but is a highly opinionated, ready to roll, highly vetted appliance?
Best of luck getting 1,000 cats to agree on the perfect mail server configuration. And that's Vicechat times 10.
True, but there need not be only one. There need be
Exactly.
6 plus round cube, just hypothetically, just completely, absolutely.
But if you kind of allow this kind of crazy everyone gets to submit his
Oh,
dot files as a port.
you've invented
The
Docker.
port committers will just hate you
Yeah.
because they can't keep up with the rush of pull requests or whatever submission format we choose. So I think it would have to be something decentralized where you point it at some Git repository and put it in or whatever. Something not centralized through the official FreeBSD infrastructure.
Cool. Checking for links. I'm going through one of these docs and I think I found maybe your jail desired features spreadsheet. Is that yours, Dave? Let's see. I think it is.
It is that one.
Come on. There we go.
Heck, if I could wish for a feature, how about jail-aware dtrace? Not that it's ever going to happen, but hey.
No, that's actually a perfect example. It's something that no one person on their own could do in their spare time. It was actually one of the things I didn't mention, but it was exactly what was in my head when I brought up this list. I would like dtrace to jail-aware dtrace.
With production user project incubation page or the enough yak time to hack?
Both. I'm pulling from each of them, and I think I found Dave's spreadsheet. We'll take a look at that before any of that. But let me get that on the list there. Has anyone investigated jail awareness in dtrace?
It doesn't
Or dtrace
exist.
aware jails? Well, okay, jail.
So the moment you basically dtrace is accessed from user space through certain device nodes, and if you expose those to the jail either, depending on what it exactly, it either works completely or not at all. And by completely, I mean the jail gets full access to the host, which is why the default configurations for the FFS do not unhide this device in a jail. Because if you do, you've given, especially with destructive dtrace, I've never tried to use it, but if you have destructive dtrace from inside a jail, it's game over by design. It's like giving someone a kernel debugger and telling them, please don't abuse it. Yeah.
As GNN put it, dtrace is a rootkit.
By design. But read-only dtrace, yeah. I mean, especially userland dtrace is not a rootkit by design. But yeah, kernel dtrace kind of is. But especially system call tracing with dtrace and userland, static trace points and function boundary tracing would be really nice to have inside a jail, and technically can be done and has been done for Solaris zones.
Oh, I'd be curious what it can and can't do.
Sure, get an Illumas user in and have them pity us and describe the promised land.
They have warm towels, yes. Okay, that said, Dave, can we punch through this list? And I think it's your list. Did we just kill this whole notion of package deploy jails?
No, you can do that.
Okay,
it's just
so
that I
it's not
don't
a
see
notion of...
a chance for those build instructions to become ports in the normal port tree.
Okay. La la la. Unprivileged jail came up. I think I have it on there. Teach mount points about dtrace in a jail. Ta-ta. That's getting a +1. Docs. Well, yeah.
Can you drop the link to this document?
Yeah, it's sure. It's at the top of the agenda page, but yes, there is the spreadsheet. Do test suite performance. Dave, I suspect you have your hands full, but is this indeed the correct spreadsheet?
It is indeed the correct spreadsheet.
Great. Okay, well, we are here. We are on it. Let's see what love we can give it as a group. Although the support for dtrace and jails was quite strong, and that's totally, be it Mark Johnston territory, etc. So maybe that is worth asking for a statement of work on. But having clear criteria of what it does and does not do would be helpful. Actually, let's do dtrace. More power
By
to
the way,
dtrace per jail, run dtrace within a jail. Can we elaborate on that? But yeah, go ahead, Jan.
no, I wanted to mention the UCL support that once you have an executable jail.conf writing a JSON or YAML or UCL to jail.conf converter is possible, and just a few hundred lines of code, so that you can have an executable indirection which passes another configuration file format and emits the equivalent jail.conf. So it would be less efficient than having the jail command do the parsing itself. Yeah, but and it would be possible.
So your comment was that jail descriptors would help make that happen?
No, not jail
what did I miss it?
descriptors.
What would
An
help?
executable
Oh,
jail.conf.
sorry. Yep, your pet project, but not in a bad way.
Yep. Jail descriptors would make it easier to supervise a jail and kind of make a jail and something you can put in your event loop, so that you can have your KQ event loop and wait for jail state changes. I since looked at other ways. In a way, we have a dev.ctl interface, which can only be consumed by one process at a time, which by convention is dev.d. And dev.d is not set up as the perfect proxy, but we have an optional kernel module you can load to turn dev.ctl messages into netlink generic messages you can subscribe to. And netlink generic will tell you if you missed a message. So in that case, you would have to iterate over all jails to resync, but it would set you up for a reliable way to get jail events without jail descriptors. But with descriptors, it would be a new type of file descriptors. It would be so much cleaner to do rather than gluing together an out-of-tree kernel module in the form of a dev.ctl jail kernel module and the netlink example for netlink generic. So because this netlink generic translation from dev.ctl to netlink is more or less an example kernel module. It's in base, has been, I think, since 13.2. 13.2. So yeah, it's there. It can be used. It's a bit unconventional, let's say it. What you have to do to subscribe to state changes, but you can have state change notifications without polling until you overrun your event queue. Then okay, you have to poll once to resync, but it's possible.
How does one add a line to an existing multi-line cell? Enter puts me in the next cell.
Shift enter, control enter,
Yeah, I
alt
tried shift
enter,
enter.
just try all of them.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Alt enter. Ah, yes. Command on Mac map to alt on this machine. Don't ask why.
Because you have a PC keyboard.
jail.conf file support would help.
The other thing is to make it as expressive as jail.conf already is with the late variable replacement, which is a powerful, slightly unusual feature about jail.conf, that the variables are not expanded at parse time, but they stay in the resulting document object model, essentially, and are then lazily expanded as you ask for a value. So that allows you to set something like, I don't know, path equals /jail /$name in your global configuration, and then have that expand to /jails my jail name inside the jail block. UCL can't do that directly because their variables are expanded at parse time. So it's part of the parsing, not of the retrieval from the resulting object graph. But you can define your own custom UCL macros. I have written custom macros in C. They can do that and much more. But yeah, something like that would be needed.
Noted. I'm looking for Bjorn Zeeb's review. I saw it yesterday, I swear. Other ideas, questions, wish list items for the next generation of jail.
Fairly small change I would really like to see is the ability to expand multi-valued variables and just have the jail.conf expand it into all the values joined by new lines. That would make a bunch of things easier. Right now you can't do it, and if you try to be too clever, you can crash the parser.
Could you type that super clearly somewhere? Because I can't off the top of my head communicate that.
So my number one request, sorry, I just had to do some extensive parenting for a bit. My number one request is actually I want what I used to call rootless jails, that a way to summon a jail as a user.
Different from unprivileged user execution.
A user, just like you can go as a it's the same thing as an unprivileged jail.
Okay,
so
well, I've got it on there,
as a normal user, if the administrator allows it, you can create a chroot as a user now, and I would like that to be a fully fledged jail. And
by root, you mean root user, not simply root.
So
got it.
Joe user goes, make me a jail, and if the system administrator has clicked the appropriate sysctl, then that should do that.
What do we know about previous art on that?
We need it in the Kubernetes, Docker, OCI world, as well as my boring world as well.
Dave?
Yeah.
How important would it be to you that this is done through a kernel system call, especially the existing one, and not through a companion daemon, some JLD, which has a Unix socket, and you send an RPC request to it, and it would create the jail on your behalf and give you the jail ID?
It probably more depends on how is this done in the Linux world, and what API is used in like OCI containers, because that's, from my personal perspective, that would be fine for me, and that's why I've got sort of point further up is I've got like a jail daemon. It's the same sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, a jail daemon is something orthogonal to that, but once you have it, making its local socket interface accessible to non-root users is basically a configuration choice. And the question is, does it have any kind of access control built in so that you can say, oh, you're only allowed to start and stop this jail, but you're not allowed to change its parameters or something. It would be fairly simple to have a quad interface to the jail configuration effectively.
Okay, I've added that. Again, do we know if there's any prior art and half-baked projects and sort of code, etc., on unprivileged jails, or is that just an idea that we've bandied around?
What we have, but is not what they've asked for, is we have super userless jails, so that in the jail nobody is effectively root privileged, and user ID 0 and group ID 0 are just other user and group IDs without any special meaning to the kernel.
That's pretty neat. It won't run RC scripts, which is fine in this context.
And the problem with RC scripts is that eventually all of them, or almost all of them, will call something like SU.
Exactly.
And that will just blow up in your face. I mean, it would be easy to have a flag in SU to, in this case, if your user ID 0 and you failed with a permission error, then you do a knob or something. And then add that to RCconf, or to have the RCconf system there, or the rc.d systems in rc.supra, the shellcode, check if it is in a jail with this and this setting. So you could do it purely in shell through a sysctl, read the jail configuration. Oh, I'm jailed. It's a super userless jail. I'm an RC script. Ignore SU. Don't invoke it.
It's just like a small change to SU to go, if the sys control is visible, then don't do the thing.
Yeah. Either that, or it would probably be cleaner, instead of making SU ignore this kind of error, just have the RC subsystem and not attempt to invoke SU if it's jailed with this jail configuration. So that's probably a 10-line change to rc.supra.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Or probably more than 10 lines per SU. Because the other thing we should really fix is all the state modification tools we invoke in rc.supra should be changed, the commands, things like SU, to have a mode where all the command line arguments stay intact, so that you don't have to do something like SU quote for a -c. Instead, you want a pure pass-through mode like sudo has it, where you do what your tool-specific configuration -- double tick $add double tick, and it's safe and always works, and the shell does not have to attempt to do some dangerous form of almost good enough quoting, because so much of the ugliness of rc.supra is this kind of almost quoting, because our shell also doesn't have a printf %q. That's also something we should add. Like the bin.sh shell should have a printf built in with which accepts %q. That would also make things so much easier to securely write reasonably efficient shell scripts, instead of having to try to apply some kind of quoting with SCD or whatever.
Yeah.
Do other shells have that? Sorry.
Keep it brief and add it to the list.
Yeah. Do you have other shells that do that, and we just follow their pattern?
Bash, ZSH, I think KSH as well.
Drop it on the list then.
I will write it in chat.
Cool.
You have an elephant at the top of this.
And sorry?
Nothing. I'm just looking at the weird animals at the top of the spreadsheet.
Yeah, it automatically
Anonymous
for
true
anonymous
and,
people.
idle mink.
Yeah. Dare I say, Jan, that's a shell feature, not a jail feature, but I will.
That's a shell feature
Put it
which
somewhere.
becomes important
Okay.
for RC scripts and jails and anything else which involves shell scripting. Because if you have that feature in printf, you can take an arbitrary shell value and safely print it in a way which you can eval back in to get, or read back in and then eval to get the exact same value back. So something that you can give it $$ and get it back in such a way that you could just invoke set dash dash and restore your argument list. So that you are not restricted to appending and prepending or shifting things off the argument list, but that you can actually save your shell argument list to a variable and restore it back without risking any quoting, unquoting, expansion funniness.
Is anyone supporting that notion?
Is it a POSIX thing?
I don't think POSIX forbids you from having this additional, because person Q, I don't think that quad precision floating point or something is POSIX either. So yeah, person Q is available, and it's not like we haven't added things to printf in C like %m. Okay, that kind of turns into standardized behavior after the fact. You're muted.
It's just another example of another push of getting something fixed.
So the annoying thing is that
yeah,
the code is not trivial to write a secure, minimally invasive person queue, but the shell already contains that functionality for read only or export-p or env and stuff. So the shell already has that function. It's just yeah, not accessible. Sorry for harping on about it. Just so annoying as a user when you encounter this issue.
I may have found it. Yay. A small one I brought up of similar tiny nature is the notion of what should jail uptime look like. The uptime of the host is, not necessarily accurate if the jail is 10 seconds old.
But realistically speaking, who cares? It's a host uptime. It's fine.
Well, for those trying to, say, have a honeypot that pretends it's something else.
Yeah, okay.
Don't get me started on fingerprinting and other goodies. I found the PID virtualization review. Cool. It was like I don't know, Q1.
So the uptime, I forget why. I think it was Unfreneg wanted it, and I forget what it was for. But
he's doing honeypots.
Yeah, in practice, all it is agreeing to add a field to the jail, sort of the prison struct that gets sort of set to 0 when it started, and then modifying tools like uptime so that they look there instead of the other place.
Dave, it's much easier. You just record the uptime on prison creation and subtract that from the real uptime on read.
Yeah, but the key thing is we need to update the prison struct and then modify a couple of user-facing.
Yeah, but you only have to set the offset on jail creation, and then you never have to modify the struct prison, so it can be protected by the create mutex.
Yeah.
And realistically speaking, it should become a new clock. So just like you have clock real time, clock uptime, fast, and so on, you would have a clock jail time, and that's just if you're in a jail, that's your default clock, and the other one is just not usable.
It's funny. This review seems to be buildable. It's just been sitting there since 2018. Maybe someone should see if it still applies, but there it is. Jamie had a few comments, but I sure haven't seen Bjorn at any recent events.
Died in review ++.
Yeah. Oh, there's my gang's all here.
Realistically speaking, we kind of want this because it's part of what we need to eventually emulate enough C groups to be able to run any systemd based Linux userland inside a jail.
Where can I comment?
Sorry, that's one way of casting all of this work is to say, okay, to run systemd stuff, we need three things.
Okay.
We need C groups, we need user-facing jails, we need this PID0, PID1 malarkey as well. Yeah.
The interesting question is, would it be good enough to have a special case in the kernel to have a designated init process for a jail and have all signals be to the PID0 be delivered to that process from inside the jail, and they were basically we just rewrite the PID, and otherwise reparent everything to that as a subreaper, so that on jail attach you would also become underneath that subreaper, and it should effectively do it without having to lie about PID1. Because one of the nice things about jails so far is that we haven't repeated the Linux mistake of virtualizing the namespace as a Linux container has its own PID and UID namespace. Instead, we should just partition namespaces so that the host still has a consistent view. So maybe the answer is we have to extend certain data types to 64 bits so that they're large enough that each jail can have 32 bits for user IDs, group IDs, and so on. Not because we need 64-bit in total, just because we want each jail to get more than 16 bits.
Does anyone have advice on how to phrase this nudge? Any requests? Any?
Phrasing what exactly?
Oh, welcome. I'm nudging the jail PID virtualization review that's been lingering since 2018, but I will add you to the attendee list.
I think what you've got is nicer than I usually use. I just say ping unless I've been saying ping too many times in one day, and then I say meow.
Okay, well then, Dave, as a core team member, do you have any words of wisdom in this situation that I
think we should start using meow more often.
Meow. I have not seen that. I'm old. I don't know.
I can't read the review number because it's too small, but if you tell me what it is, I'll see if it's still.
Let's see. I will just drop the link into chat. 15865, I think that reads. I can't even read it.
An old one.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure that
15865. Any objections to what I've written here?
It definitely needs some serious rebasing.
Ah.
It's basically toast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I quote you on that?
Yep. I would say 90% of it doesn't apply anymore.
By the way, one of the lines, line 39 in the spreadsheet, is mostly a question.
Okay.
And yes, you can reference a jail by jail ID at least. And the question is, what does that mean? It only means something if the packet is associated with a protocol control block of a socket, and that socket is associated with a jail. So it exists, but it may not do what he's asking for. And in the context of VNet-enabled jails, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you would have a designated interface connecting host and jail, and then you would just match on the incoming or outgoing interface. Like you have something, I don't know, ePair, whatever, and it's associated with that jail, and then you would just something like NAT via whatever in your IPFW rule set. So yeah, that exists, can be done. So it both exists in the literal sense, but more importantly for VNet enabled jail, it exists in the sense which I expect the question was meant. But in that case, you don't need to match the jail. You need to match the interface connecting the jail to the host network stack. And yeah, at that point, it's no different than treating a Beehive guest or a user space VPN differently in your firewall.
So Jan, on this list is the thing you raised about interfaces disappearing when something happens outside the jail, like network goes up and down. You know the thing I mean? Is that in this list?
No, but I think that was kind of overcome by events because 13, I think again 13.2 and newer have better behavior when it comes to returning the interfaces after jail destruction, basically.
Right.
And so it used to be that you don't have any, the interface get IFV move or so, however the function is called, so they move back out of the dying jail into the host. And I think now you get a devctl notification about that. The problem was that if you have a renamed interface, you can't trust its name afterward because the VNet enabled jail could have renamed it again and so on. And there has been, I think, good arguments been made about that there's kind of moving interfaces between VNets is an anti-pattern which should be avoided.
What do you mean? The process of putting it from the host into a VNet is okay, but it should
exactly. It's more or less you can't avoid it for physical interfaces, I think. But for any pseudo interfaces, there's only the ePair driver which should do it as the special case.
Yeah.
And yeah, but then you have things like WireGuard, which you can also pre-configure and move over. And is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea?
Yeah, to me,
I think what you kind of want is, and what we should do is maybe revisit the ePair driver and follow the OpenBSD design instead, where you don't create a pair as an atomic entity already connected, but they have their own pair driver, and then you have to patch two pair instances together. So that you create them individually and then create the connection between them, like a virtual patch panel.
Almost like what we do today with bridges.
Not really. A bridge is many to many and not one to one.
That is true. Yeah.
The important, basically, one side has to say, I want to be patched to this interface, and that interface exists in a different routing domain.
Yeah.
And that's a bit cleaner because then you could have some way to just make this interface visible. Like basically, you would, let's say, you have a socket and a connector kind of thing, and you could give the jail the socket, and then the jail could create an interface and plug into it. That would be a clean interface.
So do you want to add this to the list, or?
Yeah, but I don't know how to get it down to 2 lines in a way which is understandable.
Well,
So
put
the
it in
idea
whatever
would be
language
that
you
you have
please.
your
become a superpower, summarizing things efficiently.
where's the superpower?
To be able to summarize things efficiently, it could be a superpower.
Yeah. So
I'll drop it in chat. Whoever understands it best, drop it in chat or the doc
we need
directly.
a key.
No worries.
We kind of need a key jack and a socket, or keystone or whatever. Yeah.
Summarizing things is almost all I do around here.
Great, exactly. So, and then, of course, documentation questions. Are we sorely missing something? Welcome, Alexander.
Oh, we're sorely missing a bunch of things.
Like,
today I stumbled over the UUID man page in section 3, and in the bugs it even says improve man page.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so we have a top 7. One is perennial documentation. And although we may have buried the lead, Alexander, we're discussing sort of wish list items for jail 2.0, whatever that means, or 15.0 goals when we can have like API changes and other major new features. So, let me guess. We have like 7 people and 7 topics. Each probably wants a different one as a priority. So this was futile. I'm terrible. Any consensus to be achieved here? Like voting? I don't know.
I have a great idea. Why don't we let it stew for a couple of weeks?
Okay.
And in the interim, I will find a like a ranked choice voting tool. So Condorcet, Schulze type thing where you pair match, and then we can see what makes it top of the list. Context for Alexander is that what I wanted to do was put in a bunch of jail-related things as a proposal for financial year 2026 to the foundation to say, these are some things we would like to see. Could you find some funding for it? And in the interim, also maybe we have to find someone to do it. It's the jails. So some of these
sounds great to me.
Yeah, some of these things are when we do work on FreeBSD, it comes in like in either 2 places. It's a community person or a company, so they have their own funding, or there's a larger piece of work or more complicated or more in depth where those people don't have that expertise, and it's something often that the people in the foundation do. So a great example for this is the core memory management in FreeBSD is something that only a very small people, a number of people understand well, or the boot up process, the very, very early bootloader. And there's not many people who do that. And that's good avenues for the foundation to support those. So that's the goal. Make the list, summarize it, pick a few items, and then put it forward to the foundation. And then in 2026, have it done.
I see you added the TARFS jail users documentation. Okay, TARFS is a thing, but I think we need something better because TARFS is a pathological worst case for a file system. We need something simple like squashfs, even if it's initially uncompressed or compressed via geom. And the question would probably be, is UFS1 good enough to have a read-only UFS? If you really want it file-based and not ZFS snapshot-based. And a read-only ZFS clone is effectively unpack a tarball and then use it like TARFS.
It is, yeah, with mount points and stuff. The main thing with TARFS, it's really simple to get started. really, really simple, and it works.
It would.
And with Z standard streaming Z standard compression, it's actually okay.
No, it's not.
I
It's
didn't-
okay once you have the inode cache populated.
Yeah.
It's fucking insanely inefficient because you have the headers interleaved with the file content, so that you have a ridiculously bad density when it comes to linearly scanning for the headers. You could argue that you could cache the headers by having kind of a tar archive with only headers and well, I don't know, sparseness in between to look into the and then scan. But yeah, it's not fun. Tar is just not designed for random reading. It's a archive which makes sense on a tape drive or for completely unpacking it.
You
Not
kind of
for
have to bear in
mounting.
mind how much space is this? So with ZFS, sorry, not with ZFS, with Z standard is actually better. We're not going to fix on the score, right? The point here was it's something useful. We should document it.
The streaming ZSTD decompression just allows you to seek within each ZSTD compress block so that you do not have to decompress the whole block.
Yeah.
Take care,
But
Dan.
when you look at the size of these tarballs, it's trivial. They're like sort of 40 to 80 megs tops. Total.
No, they're like 2 gigabytes with 20,000 files in them. If you have a full user land.
We're talking about completely
which
different
decompress to 3.5 gig.
We're talking about completely different things. I'm talking about base TXZ as a way to get people started with jails, and it's not that big. I think we're splitting hairs here. And if I want a fast performance thing, then I will recommend to people to use UFS or ZFS. And you're right that it's not as efficient, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't document it. And that was the point of this thing. It's worth documenting, I think.
Dave, do you know if Olivier Sertner's Union FS project has made progress? I see that the foundation has been promoting it.
Which one, sorry?
I will drop this I may as well bring it to the big old group here. Let's see. Boom, come on. Union FS stability and stuff.
No idea.
Let's see. I will just get us all on the same page here. Let's go. Okay. Paste. Boom. 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 He gave some great details at the OpenZFS User and Developer Summit. And here is the foundation page on that.
Oh, nice.
Oh, reviews. Here's some reviews. We like that. Ba, ba, ba. Three at the bottom there, 3898. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm glad they post the review. Nicely done. Did they link them? No, but such is life. We take what we can get. Boom. Try that again. Paste. And paste again. It doesn't want to paste. Copy. I can do this. We can do this. Paste. Well, computer. Okay, so I am doing that. There we go. Thank you. That said, Michael Chui had one down there of overlay file systems. I will chalk that up to the work I just mentioned. Jan, it's up to you if TarFS, SquashFS, and other goodies gets a place.
Oh.
Dev exposure, app, but we beat that to death. Go ahead.
I think it's possible to, as long as these kinds of read-only file systems like TarFS, SquashFS are useful and can do what you need, then read-only ZFS clones can do the same, just more efficiently, and with a bunch of niceties in addition to that. So in that case, you don't have to add anything but a little helper script to make use of them like this. So whenever you have a tarball you want to mount with tarfs, you can also unpack it in a new data set in ZFS, snapshot that, create a clone, keep the clone read-only, and you have effectively tarfs with full ZFS semantics.
Hmm.
So the feature just exists, but it's like 5 commands instead of 1 to invoke. So either we need a little helper.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we have 3 foundation class projects, for lack of a better term, and 3 in review, although 1 doesn't quite count insofar as it's very stale. That's a great start right there. And what I would not want to see is that we achieve none of these for reasons. So put on your appropriate hats and think about what can be done. And I suspect we've gone in a circle on like dtrace. It's like, well, that's a fundamental FreeBSD feature. Thank you, Illumos and Solaris for that. We have it. It needs love across the board. That's one way to give it love. This has come up for years. And that's small and tangible. And then I guess
So
UFS.
I have an issue with the way you wrote this down in the minutes with rootless jail / unprivileged jail.
Which is more accurate?
No, that's fine, but you threw it together with our CSU issues, which are a separate thing.
Oh, are they separate? No, then I
Yes.
misunderstood
So,
you. So elaborate,
so
please.
what Dave asked for is the ability to manage jails without being the host's root.
Oh, that is very different. And I now see
So
the
that
distinction. Thank
he
you.
can run as a developer, for example, he can run his CI/CD pipeline,
Yes.
do things in jails without having to be super user
Right.
for the, I don't know, build bot or whatever, to be able to run as stuff in a new jail. For every test deployment or regression test, you create a jail. That's what has been asked for.
I get it.
But what we already have is jail.camp parameter you can set. Let me look up the correct name. Allow.suser.
Fuser?
Which is this allow.superuser, just truncated to suser.
Thank you.
And that means that if you set this to 0, there is no super user. So basically, root is not special inside of this jail. So being user ID 0 does not give you root privilege. It just means you have user ID 0. As in, if a file is owned by user ID 0, you can do things to it, but you cannot just do something to any file because you're root, because you're effectively just user ID 0. You are not the traditional root anymore. So that this doesn't exist. But it also means that things which think they are root, like rc.d scripts, are not able to drop privileges because changing your effective user ID from 0 to non-zero, so effectively on a normal system, dropping root privileges is in its own a privileged operation because you are changing your effective user ID to something other than the saved one, which means without having super user privileges, you're not allowed to drop your non-existing privilege, which then breaks SU and thereby breaks basically almost all rc.d scripts because they will use SU to set things like the locking class. even if they're supposed to run as root, you want to run them with a daemon locking class by default. And that means if effectively any service is started through SU, and that breaks. Which is why I mentioned that it could be fixed by having the RC subsystem functions look at the sysctl to find out if they're running in a jail with this setting, and then just not use SU and just run as is, because there is no privilege to drop. And yeah, if you're running an rc.t script in this context, it would just not change the user ID and so on. So that
Okay.
it would still work, and then you would be able to have these jail start rc.t services. Right now they exist, but you have to write all the scripts running inside of them yourself. So it's not a very useful feature if you want to run the FreeBSD userland. You can only run custom stuff.
Oh, interesting.
But again, to start such a jail, you still have to be root on its parent, which is normally the host, unless you have child jails enabled. So yeah. So this is like a super userless jail, or jail without super user. And unprivileged jail is something different. That's unprivileged jail management. So that just like you can in recent FreeBSD versions set a sysctl as root once to allow arbitrary users to create change root environments, to allow arbitrary users to create jails as their user.
Should I call that unprivileged jail?
So the unprivileged jail management and super userless jail or whatever. So and the SU stuff is not does not belong under unprivileged jail management.
I'm trying to follow. I swear. I swear. Okay.
I just wanted to avoid an edit war.
Yeah.
I can just
Okay. Well,
pack it in there.
ideas evolve. So this is under. I I thought you clarified that that would be under there. So this would be under unprivileged or not?
No, wait, let me just write that
Go
out.
ahead. Yeah. Work your magic. But I
Yeah.
totally see what broadly I see as categories what you're saying. That's great. Other ideas, questions, wish lists, funny jokes, t-shirt ideas.
I
And
found an online,
yes,
I found an online Condorcet Schulze voting thing. So I'll throw them all in a list and we can go through that. Because your
on
way of
your
rank
doc,
choice.
this doc, or elsewhere.
Hmm?
On where will you drop that? This doc or your doc or somewhere else in the
I'll put it in here once I've done it. It's going to take me a little while to prepare.
Okay.
Basically, you pick like your top 4 things by comparing pairs, and then overall the software
Oh,
sits
the
behind.
voting. Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay.
It's what we want in our political systems, but we never get in most
Ha.
countries.
Yeah. No. Let's. So for my personal topic of the hour, it is hypervisor authenticity, and some call it what? Spoofing or many things. I'm curious under compat Linux jails, are there any shortcomings on making FreeBSD look like a real Linux system, particularly to get, say, applications working that uh, depend on some often pointless attribute that suggests that it's a real system or a pre-blessed system? if all those issues are solved, that's great news. There's nothing to discuss. That would be the best possible outcome. And thank you, Jan, for clarifying all that, because the idea is in your head far clearer than my head. And Dave, my one concern on a voting mechanism will be that it can be gamed.
Of course, again, but we probably know.
As long as you have the names next to each vote, and it's an
Yeah.
open vote, and not a. Yes, it could be game, but
Oh, you're
and in
formatting.
a way, I
Jeez,
wouldn't
then it
even
doesn't fit on one
consider
screen.
it
Jeez, okay.
malicious to tactically vote. Like, yes, I would really like to vote, spend my, let's say, like, if I have 2 or 3 votes, I want to put my vote here, but I know that this is an unrealistic goal. So instead, I'm going to put it towards something which may get over the line because of my vote. That's just tactical voting.
Hmm.
Of course, who gave us authority to vote? And is anyone bound by that vote? Is another question.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
What you got? We should wrap this up otherwise.
I
Is it
really,
in
really
progress?
like traditional FreeBSD culture of rough consensus where, you know, we never see somebody, like it's very, very rare that somebody will just say hard knack, no.
Hmm.
But in theory, everyone has the ability to do that. And to me, that's the only possible thing that cannot ever be gamed.
I don't know what I think we're missing, and which could be coordinated for this kind of polling or voting, is an agreement to pool resources which no single individual can contribute. Basically, because a lot of these features are not that powerful on their own, but if you get the right set implemented, you unlock a new like tag tree.
I see. That makes sense.
And if you want to have that tech tree unlocked, multiple people have to come together and get certain things committed so that you can do this in a reasonably painless way without completely hacking around limitations. So yeah. So it's not good enough that I want my feature in. Fine, get your feature in. It's useful to you. But if we can get these 3 or 4 features in, suddenly we have something which is more than the sum of its parts. And if we want the synergy to be unlockable, multiple people have to agree and come together.
We are the word. Oh, sorry. Okay. Anything else at this time?
Okay, I've got something.
Bring it on. What you
So
got?
on GitHub, Quentin, forget his last name, on the FreeBSD pull requests GitHub, he has a patch.
Link.
I thought that, yeah, I'm trying to pull it up. Sorry.
Rule number 1: not beaten up on you, just reminding.
Yeah, he's got a patch. He wants to add more variables. Posting it in the chat now.
Thank
He
you.
wants to add the stuff, and he's from the Discord, and he's upset that nobody's reviewing it. But I know that many people like myself have looked at this, and you know, just like I don't like it, but I think that someone smarter than
Let him
me
finish.
can explain it.
I think that feature is redundant because it already exists if you know about it.
So basically, would you be willing to explain that to him on the thread? Because I know I've seen this. I know a ton of people have seen this. I've even had conversations with people where we're face palming about this, but nobody, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to, nobody wants
Let
to
me
tell it.
write it up as a comment to the GitHub.
You want to do that, or shall we
That's-
do it as a group?
Um,
Go for it. I don't care.
That's perfect. Thank you.
So Jan,
And
you'll do
that's,
it?
golf clap for Jan, taking one for the team.
I was willing to. I was willing to.
I was actually not willing to.
That's fine. And on that note, I had a lovely conversation with Alexei, a name you'll know from the Beehive goodies. He has a new updated EDK2 port. I will get on topic, I swear. And he has, of course, the GPU pass-through stuff. And I got him on to reviews.freebsd.org. I gave him some sample reviews of like the previous EDK2 updates. And he's requested a wiki page, which does not appear to be a self-service request process. You have to mail someone and wait. And I know, Jan, you had some challenges with that. But um, he is very much a child of just Discord, if you will, not to age constrain him in any way, shape, or form. That's just a broader term there. Um, I think all of that sequence and procedure is can be improved, but his willingness was awesome. His attitude is great. Uh, I expect great things from him, and you've touched on that whole nexus of Discord, GitHub generation, you name it. How does that mesh with a 30-year-old project? Take care, Lasse. So, there I said it. Jan, thanks for updating that. And I say, on that note, unless someone's got something else, let's call it good. And going once, going twice. Who would like the honors?
like and subscribe.
I'll take it. Thank you, everyone.
Smash
Talk
that
to you
little
perhaps
bell.
tomorrow. What's that, Jan?
Smash that little bell if you want to get even more notifications you can ignore.